Yes, you lot, what you're saying. In today's video, we're going to be designing merch for a pretty funky artist who goes by the name of VENBEE. So, not quite sure who VENBEE is, chances are you've probably heard a couple of her tunes already. With songs such as Messy in Heaven and her most recent song Gutter, VENBEE's been taking the UK by a storm right now. Making a name for herself in the electronic dance and drum and bass scene, VENBEE's lyrics often speak on dark and sad topics which are adamant within her life and adolescence. However, then paired with a dancey beat in which her words won't make you cry, however you'll be slightly sad and dancing at the same time. So this video we're going to be creating 3 t-shirt designs for VENBEE, touching on her song names and overall just portraying her brand and aesthetic for our designs too. So for my first design I wanted to create something which shows who VENBEE is behind her music, in which I thought using various images of her to create a collage sort of bootleg style design. If you guys are unsure what I mean by this, here is an example of bootleg design. It's essentially the old unlicensed music merch you'd be sold from a dodgy bloke in a parking lot behind the gig you're at. Once my images were in place, I then tied in the vibe of VENBEE's dancing music with this synthwave sort of style background, in which I overlaid with a bright pop of pink. Adding more depth to the background, I used this grungy plastic texture and set my overlay options to screen. Staying on my collage style vintage design, I use these torn paper edge PNGs which distress the sides of my image, creating a little handmade sort of roughened up effect. To blend in my images of VENBEE, I selected a colour overlay of purple and then I used the opacity to time the colour tone of the background. Now, I personally think VENBEE's style of music goes quite well with the whole Y2K aesthetic, therefore I use this Y2K inspired vector shape and incorporate her logo using a gradient overlay. I then incorporated another vector shape to accompany the style within the logo. During this point I realised I wanted another image of VENBEE, so I imported this one and placed it behind my torn edges layer. Then playing around with the filter gallery, I added this water paper and torn edge combination of layer styles onto my image. And selected colour dodge, bringing down the opacity to add that slightly sort of vintage and discoloured vibe. Moving on to our next design, I wanted to create quite a statement tee which was ultimately a portrait of VENBEE. I thought this would be pretty cool as I just thought VENBEE's sort of style and clothing and her overall swagger in her pose just would look really good as a huge statement on a t-shirt. I used a gradient map to replace the colour in this image, selecting a black and blue colour palette and merging my 2 layers into one. I then duplicated my layer a few times and added various motion blurs to each, creating a slightly sort of blurred and misprinted result. Choosing my top layer, I then changed the blending options to exclusion, leaving these nice sort of subtle highlight colours which I then brought out using curves and a blending change within my gradient map. To create a slight glow in my image, I then selected outer glow and added some noise to keep that sort of grungy streetwear look. I then experimented with type using VENBEE's name, however then later decided to swap this around with her logo, which you'll see later in the reveal. Using her lyrics from Gutter, which were very memorable and distinguishable amongst fans, I placed this handwritten text behind her and then capitalised the words which had emphasis during her song. And for my final design, I wanted an illustrated approach which would be created using thresholds. I started by cropping out both the background and VENBEE from this image using the pen tool. This then allowed me to add a different threshold strength to both the background and the foreground, as I didn't want to make VENBEE too gritty, keeping mostly the highlight, whereas I wanted the background to be high in depth. I then added a colour overlay to both these layers, however these colours would change a little later on, as you'll see next. For my type to display VENBEE's name, I chose this font which I thought sort of added a fun collage style which would fit her brand quite well, as it's just a bit quirky, a bit youthful and fun. I placed Messy in Heaven in this handwritten signature font as if she's wrote it herself on this t-shirt. I then copied this style onto the different song names written on this t-shirt. While designing this, I wanted my design features to be quite messy and overlapping on purpose. I wanted this t-shirt to feel as if someone has literally just come and sort of hand drawn on the fabric with a marker pen, leaving signature writing and complementing that sort of screen printed illustration. So here are all three designs for VENBEE's unofficial merch. I chose to use different art styles each just as I wanted to experiment with some variety. My first design plays on the aesthetic of vintage bootleg tees using a collage style of images, in which I then went ahead and added a little more in the design, tearing the image in half and typing VENBEE's most popular song names too. For my second design, I created this loud statement tee which targets more of an edgy youthful demographic who want that sort of raw streetwear style, however in a simplistic form. I think I captured a good balance between streetwear and VENBEE's music within this design. Let me know what you think. And my final design, I took on VENBEE's brand and tried to convey this in an illustrated hand-drawn design, as if someone's literally come and hand-drawn it directly onto the fabric using a marker pen. Lots of bold underlines and a messy little doodle to finish it off. So there you guys have it. That was my take on VENBEE's merch. 3 t-shirt designs all created in different styles. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, maybe what you would have done differently. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, then please feel free to follow me on my socials. My Instagram and my Twitter handles are here and here. And cool, I'll see you in the next one in a bit.